Should be on. Yeah. Welcome, first of all, to the May Development Management Committee meeting for Hart District Council. I'm Councillor Alan Oliver. I'm the chairman of the committee. As we have quite a number of members of the public with us tonight, I'm going to get the lead officer to do the fire evacuation procedures first.
So there's no fire alarm planned for this evening. So if it sounds it's the real McCoy, please look for the green signs with the arrows and make your exit quickly, but in a controlled fashion. Do not use the lifts. If anyone has particular difficulty with the stairs, please do ask the committee services officer here who will escort you to the most appropriate staircase for evacuation. And when clear of the building, please make your way to the views meadow, which is at the back of the building, where a roll call will be taken. Don't re-enter the building until told to do so by the officer in charge. So the person chairing the meeting on hearing the alarm bell will interrupt proceedings and announce they're suspending the meeting and repeat the above instructions. So hopefully that's all clear. Finally, could I just please ask you to silence your phones if you have them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I first have got to announce that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, so anyone remaining at the meeting has deemed to consent to that recording. Okay, if you don't consent, I'm afraid you'll have to leave. Thank you. And first of all, as we have a number of members of the public here with us, I need to introduce some of the members of the panel here. In the horseshoe in front of us are members of the Management Committee, Development Management Committee. They're all councillors, but we have a number of officers here tonight to help us with our deliberations and decision making. So I'm going to get them to introduce themselves so you know their role and function tonight. Tolo, would you start?
Good evening, I'm Charlotte Deco. Good evening, I'm Charlotte Deco, Principal Lawyer, here to advise the Planning Committee on the law and procedures of the meeting tonight, but I won't be taking part in the decision making. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Kathy Long and I'm from Committee Services here to take the minutes this evening.
Hello, I'm Mark Berry. I'm the Development Manager here at Hart District Council.
And I'm James Kidger. I'm the Principal Planner who will be presenting the Cross Farm application.
Right, thank you. Just so that members of the public understand, we have a number of procedural items we have to go through tonight because it's our first meeting in this municipal year. So we have to vote for various things. Apologise for the next 20 minutes, but we will get to the applications in due time. Right, first of all, we need to elect a vice chair of this meeting. Sorry,
Chairman, just one point. Because of the fans in the room, some of the people aren't speaking very clearly into the microphone. So if I could ask please that members of the committee speak clearly into the microphone, that really help the members.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Right. If somebody fails to do that, please someone stick their hand up and that will remind them. So first of all, nominations for vice chair of this committee.
Like to
nominate
Councillor Quarterman.
Okay. Anybody second that nomination? Councillor Cockerell. Any other nominations for vice chair?
Sorry.
Okay. Right. All those in favour of Councillor Quarterman? Any against? No, that's unanimous. Okay, you are vice chair for this municipal year, Councillor Quarterman. Then I'll turn to the minutes of the previous committee on the 22nd of April. Does anybody have any matters of accuracy to raise? Can I have somebody propose those minutes to be signed? Councillor Wildsmith. I should be able to remember you by now, shouldn't I? Seconded. Seconder. Vice Chairman usually does it. Thank you, Councillor Quarterman.
I wasn't actually present for part of the meeting, but
you can nominate it.
Okay, yeah.
You don't have to vote for it.
Yeah.
So all those in favour of those minutes, are those present?
Can I abstain because I'm subbing for somebody else?
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
All right.
So those presents, the minutes are accurate, and I'll approval to sign those. Right. today? 27th. Right. Moving on. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. This evening, we've got a few apologies. Councillor Dawn has apologised, and he is substituted this evening by Councillor Hiley. Councillor Hardy has sent her apologies. Councillor Makepeace Brown has sent her apologies, and she's substituted this evening by Councillor Collins. Councillor Radley has sent his apologies, and he is substituted by Councillor Butler. And Councillor Southern has sent his apologies and is substituted by Councillor Crampton.
Thank you. I need to also ask, anybody got any declarations of interest on any of the items we're going to discuss tonight? And as usual, if you find you have an interest as we go through, just raise your hand and we'll note it then. Okay. Chair's announcements. I don't have any specifically this evening, except to remind people about planning training session 2, which some of you were here. And also, if you weren't here for training and haven't been in the last 3 years, you'll be getting a reminder to come on training phase 1 to make you able to sit on this committee. Now we move to the appointments to the various subcommittees of this meeting. Now, firstly, on item 6, which is the Development Management Enforcement Subcommittee, I've had a request from officers that this be changed to a working group. And the reason for this is that they feel hamstrung to actually, in public, talk about enforcement actions that are going on particular sites. They would prefer this to be turned into a working group where all councillors could attend if they have an interest in an enforcement issue, and they can talk candidly in private to officers. Now, the issue we have is that the enforcement subcommittee is in the constitution as an established committee, so it would need a change to the constitution to allow us to turn this into a working group. So I need the permission of this committee to actually request that change, and hopefully I've given you the reason why, and that's to actually help officers be more communicative and available to all councillors, not only development management councillors, to discuss enforcement issues. They will, of course, always circulate the generic enforcement performance, but it's when they try to talk with individual councillors about enforcement issues that are relevant to their ward that they feel that they cannot be as open, because it's a public live streamed meeting and it's enforcement and it could be legal action being discussed. Councillor Quarterman.
Thank you. Would we expect the working group to maintain the same schedule that the enforcement subcommittee has done up until now, and therefore meet on a regular basis? I think it's quarterly at the moment.
Yes, I think it would be that we would turn it into a regular meeting and use the existing slots that have already been booked to turn that into a working group. It may be that we want to turn that working group into an evening meeting to make it more accessible for more councillors, but that's something we can discuss when we agreed the principle of turning it from a subcommittee to a working group. Councillor Watson.
Slight question. If we agree on that, if it's a change in constitution, that won't go for full council until July, and then it can't be agreed at full council in July because it's constitutional till September. So do we have to have something in place up until then?
I would propose to actually still elect the members for this Development Management Enforcement Subcommittee and maybe have the first meeting. Okay, but to get the ball rolling, we will then go to council for approval to change the constitution. So I would still be looking for, in a moment, members of that enforcement subcommittee to make sure that we're not without that subcommittee in the next 3 to 4 months. Mr. Wildsmith.
Happy to propose it. I think it's probably something which, but it's obviously a constitutional change, so full council has on, but I think will probably be views from across the whole council. So I'm happy to propose it right, but then full council will get to discuss and decide it.
Yeah. So I've recommended it, you've seconded it. Should we have a vote on whether or not I can ask for that change? and then it will be discussed at full council. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? One. Okay. Two. Was it two abstentions? Okay. All right. Okay, thank you for that. So I then ask for 5 members for the Development Management Enforcement Subcommittee. I've had a pre-request from a Councillor Southern to be considered. He tracked me down before he went on holiday to make sure I understood. So I think we'll be very dismissive of me if I didn't accept the nomination to start with.
I'd like to.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to request to be on
Councillor Collins.
Sorry, I'm proposing Wendy Makepeace-Brown as
Oh,
she's
right.
on the committee.
We need 2 other members.
So I was on it previously and I'm happy to continue.
Quarterman. Okay, we need 1 other member volunteer. Councillor Wildsmith. Okay, thank you. And then we'll see how we do at council, putting that into a working group. Appointment to the Development Management Major Sites Subcommittee. I've had a pre-request from Councillor Radley to remain on that. And we need 2 other members, and I think they will be quite busy this year, seeing what's coming down the track in some pre-applications that have come through. Who else would like to be on the Major Sites Subcommittee? Councillor Cockrell. And I looked to see who was on last year. It was Cockrell, Delaney, Forster, Radley, Warlock.
Chairman, is that on a schedule or only on demand, that committee?
That is mostly on demand, and usually during the day, because sometimes they bring in the developer to actually explain their plans and process. Councillor Smith.
On too much.
You can, and I'm sure he will pick that up with you when he returns. Okay. And he will say thank you very much. But he is experienced in planning. So we've got 4 members that, so we're quorate on that. So we needed 3, we've got 4. Right, the Development Management Committee Working Party. Now, there's going to be significant changes to the way this DM committee works, and changes to procedures, to authorizations, to the scheme of delegation. So I am minded to say that we should actually call all this committee to that working party to discuss it, rather than look for nominations. Does anybody fundamentally disagree with that and just want to leave it with a small caucus? So we will just try to get a working party date and get all members and invite all members of the DM community to it.
Is there a particular number of councillors we would need to have to be quorate or anything, or is it, if it's a working party, presumably it's
a working party. I don't think it needs to be quorum.
No,
but we would. But if only 1 or 2 members turned up, I think we would actually reschedule.
Yeah, but if we were 1 or 2 missing, it wouldn't be a problem.
It wouldn't be a problem. No. Okay, is that happy for that in the minutes? The QEB steering group. The existing 3 members are all happy to stay in their posts. That's myself, Councillor Makepeace-Brown and Councillor Radley. There is a discussion that I'm having with Hampshire whether that should continue or not. Councillor Forster.
Chair, just for correctness, I should declare an interest as the executive member for highways and planning, which that effectively works for. It's non-prejudicial.
Right, okay, because obviously a lot of the money has been used on transport and road safety concerns. I'm going to have a discussion with the Hampshire County Council officers involved in this on whether it needs to continue, because the latest report we've had is though the monies have already been allocated to projects. If they've already been allocated or committed, or even spent, then there's little reason for us to work with Hampshire on a strategy or how to spend zero. It seems, but I want to confirm first of all that that is what is actually the true state of affairs in Hampshire. And then I will write to the existing members and the member from Crookham Village to say that we won't, and there is a Hampshire County Council allocated member. I don't know who that is yet, for the QEB transport. It used to be Councillor Withers from Farnborough that was on the QEB steering committee last year, but he's no longer a councillor, so his name would not appear on that list. But I will keep this committee up to speed on that, and primarily also the members of the existing committee to see if we need to actually convene that again. Okay, members happy with that to proceed? Thank you. Right, we then have to receive in the minutes of the last Development Management Enforcement Subcommittee. Happy with those minutes? I think we only have to receive them. We don't have to note them. Nobody's got any questions because the chairman of the subcommittee is not here. So we can then just ask Councillor Crampton as the substitute. Any questions on that? No? Thank you. Then we'll receive those into these minutes. And then we will come to the meat of the meeting, which is development applications. And we have one tonight. And that is land at Cross Farm, Crondall Lane, Fleet. And we have various presentations, and we have public speaking both for and against the application, which I'll come to later. But first of all, would you like to introduce the item and go through a brief presentation for the committee?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll just get the presentation on the screen. Yeah, so this is land at Cross Farm, and the proposal is for the change of use of the land from agriculture to open space, and for the creation of suitable alternative natural green space, or SANG, along with associated works, and the delivery of a biodiversity net gain, both on the site and as a gain site for other developments. So this is the application site area, edged red, and you've got the street at Crondall Village, Crookham Village to the north, Crondall Road to the west, and you can see the Basingstoke Canal to the east and the south. This is the same shot with a Google satellite view. Again, so you've got the Crookham Village main area, the street to the north, the sort of the site area in the centre, and you can just see the sort of area within agricultural use at present there, with the plough lines. And then you've got Crondall Road again to the west, and the existing woodland at the south. Along with the canal, you can see snaking across. The proposal, so the existing public rights of way are dashed in orange, and you can see the one down the centre and one on the easterly side. The main part of the proposed SANG is that wavy white path shown on the drawing, and that would give the circular walk. The car park is on the westerly side. It's just slightly greyed out there on the very far left of shot. The darker green area on the left-hand side, on the westerly side, is the wetland mosaic, the floodplain wetland mosaic area, some of which would be developed in a so-called phase 2. There's other indications of biodiversity net gain on there. So on the right-hand side of the drawing, you can see some planting in the light green dots, and patches of sort of light green scrub on the far right of shot. And then in the sort of semicircular loop, again toward the right-hand side of that, there's an orchard proposed. So yeah, the main thing to draw from that is the circular path, which is the main bit of development proposed, along with the car park, which I'll come back to. So just some indications of how the proposal has changed during the course of the application. So on the left-hand side, you can see the original proposal with the pathway quite close to the boundaries. And on the right-hand side, it has been amended during the course of the application to draw that path back from some of those boundaries. So just the comparative images. And again, some changes on the easterly sides of the site. You can see on the left there, the original proposal was included dog agility area just at the top of that image. And then there was a slightly increased area of hard surfacing in the middle, just that patch of white there in the left-hand shot. And then, as amended, those elements have been removed. They would have been on the highest ground and would have been quite visible. This image just shows what is now proposed as phase 2. So if you see that slightly darker blue at the bottom of the shot, and that would be an enhancement, a biodiversity enhancement as part of what is known as phase 2. And although we don't have a lot of detail of that, we are proposing a condition that would control anything that would happen under phase 2. So the lighter blue there, just towards the top of the shot, that is now proposed as part of phase 1. And again, that is biodiversity gain. Some extra detail on the car park here. So this is the proposed car park off Crondall Road. Would be accessed from the existing access, and I've got some photos of that later on. You can see there are 2 swales, sort of the light blue strips, one towards the left-hand side and one in the centre. And that is part of the flood risk mitigation as well as the sustainable drainage system. And then it just shows the planting and the surfacing, which again has changed from the original submission, and that is shown on this next shot. So on the left-hand side, you've got the as submitted drawing, a fairly harsh treatment originally proposed with tarmac and formally delineated spaces, a bit less planting as well. The final proposal on the right, a much more sensitive treatment for the surfaces, and I'll come on to that shortly. Extra planting along the sides, so a little more in keeping with the surround. So this again just shows some of the detailing for the car park that was added into the proposal. So there would be a resin-bound gravel surface, and one of the proposed conditions would secure details of that treatment. And there's some permeable paving and curbing, stone effect curbing, just contributes towards that look. This is the planting plan for the car park. So lots of detail provided up front. And we have discussed that with our tree officer, who is happy with that.
Speak up, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so our tree officer is happy with some of that detail, and that will be secured by condition. So this shot is a section drawing of the proposed car park. And you can see on the right-hand side there that the ground level would be raised. And that is due to the flood risk mitigation due to the presence of the River Hart nearby. So that will be raised, and there's some details on the next series of shots, which just show the effect of that. So the raising of the ground has to be compensated for. And on the left-hand side, you can see one of the swales, which is sort of a shallow depression into the ground, and that would compensate some of the land raising. and that would link with the river. So it's fully linked in with the existing mechanisms. And then on the right hand side shows you the residual displacement. So some of that land raising not compensated for entirely by the swale, and that would be displaced. You can see there just the assorted orange and yellow dots on the right hand image. That's where the water would go. So there would be no increase off site. You've got some increase there on the site, but it's not a sensitive area. I'll skirt over this a little bit, but this is just the detailed flood modelling. And you can see there on the left-hand side that pre any works, there's a small band of the blue line across where the car park would be. And that is the existing flood risk. And that is why the land is proposed to be raised. And then the result of that land raising on the right-hand side shows that element of blue is removed. And you can just see there an area of blue corresponding with the yellow and orange on the previous shot, which is where the displaced water would go. Some photographs. So this is essentially looking at that area. You've got the existing estate railing in the foreground, the existing gate on the left-hand side, which is where the access would go. And you're looking toward that ridge in the distance, which is the protected view under the neighbourhood plan. So that ridge in the distance is the view from the road. Very similar shot, looking toward the left of the previous shot. You've got the gate in the foreground. And here you're looking directly where the car park would go. And the tree on the left is proposed for removal to facilitate visibility displays from the access. So the access is in the foreground shot there. This is looking up Crondall Road, again left of the previous shot. And the tree, again, the tree in the foreground is proposed for removal there. And finally, in this series of shots, this is looking the other way, a bit further up the road, but looking down. And you can see the tree is now on the right-hand side for removal, and the grassed area in the centre of the shot is where the car park would be. Some shots of the footpaths. This is footpath 1 running south from Crookham Village, the street, and this shows the existing condition of the footpath. This is a view again from that same footpath 1 towards some of the houses fronting the street to the north. And this is a shot again of the same footpath in the winter. You can see the churned up condition there. There would be some improvements to these footpaths secured as part of the legal agreement we recommended if this is to be approved. This is a shot from footpath 5, which is east of footpath 1, and it runs broadly toward the canal from the street at Crookham Village. And this is showing some of the existing houses looking towards or on the south side of the street. And you can just see there some of the boundary treatments are not continuous, and you can see into some of those gardens. And that would be the case from some of the paths proposed for the Sang. You get a similar effect in slightly different locations. And again, just a shot of the state of the path in the winter, and some improvements to those paths are recommended as part of the Section 106 agreement. So just to sum up, key considerations here. On the one hand, the benefits of the scheme, we have a large amount of public open space and Sang, which is the designation, but the public open space would contribute towards the green infrastructure in the area. So we'd link up with a lot of the other green infrastructure bits, like the canal. There's a Sang to the east, and of course the existing public footpaths. So that would effectively enhance the green grid in the area. And then of course as Sang, the area could then be used for mitigation. So mitigation of other houses elsewhere, which in the context of the council's housing land supply position could be very valuable in the years to come. Secondly, a lot of biodiversity net gain will be delivered with this scheme. So there would be the statutory 10%, which would be secured as part of the scheme itself. And then there would be quite a lot of additional gain, which could be used to secure that statutory gain for other schemes. But it would ultimately all happen on this site. And then thirdly, the neighbourhood plan has a policy for the preservation of the gap, the existing gap between Crookham Village and Church Crookham / Fleets, the built-up area to the east. And this scheme would effectively preserve that gap for at least a period of 80 years. So the majority of that gap would be preserved. Now, set against that, you've got the proposed car park, which is quite large, and it's a fairly urbanising feature. I mean, it has been toned down quite a bit from the original submission, but the size and the form of that car park does clash with the local grain, the local character, and indeed with the local heritage assets. So there's a listed building to one side, a locally listed building to the other, and part of the car park is within the conservation area. So there's those character and heritage harms. There's some impact to that key view, which you can see in the photographs. The car park will be in the foreground of that view, and there will be some detriment to that view. And then, of course, the loss of the oak tree to facilitate those visibility displays, that again would have some detriment to the visual amenity of the surround. There are also some impacts to the amenity of neighbours, and with regards to the loss of some agricultural land, the neighbouring amenity impacts, there's a flavour of those in that last photo, or one of those last photos, where some of the houses sort of backing onto the area of the site have little in the way of screening. Now, there is a condition proposed to secure hedgerows on some of those boundaries. So overall, the impact to amenity is limited, but nonetheless, there is an impact to amenity. Onto flood risk. This is a fairly interesting one because the car park is in the floodplain area, and there's a technical policy conflict with regards to what we call the sequential test, which hasn't been carried out. However, we have to assess on the ground what the risks are. And given that raising of levels, the car park would be safe for its lifetime, and those mitigations, so the swale and the displacement of water within the site rather than off the site, means that the development would be A, be safe for its lifetime, and B, would not increase risk elsewhere. So overall, we have a policy conflict, but not a particularly harmful on-the-ground situation. So overall, the view of officers is that the balance here weighs in favour of granting permission. The gains are more on the strategic side, so with the SANG, a large amount of open space, and the preservation of that gap for a long period of time. And the harms are fairly localised, so they are primarily, it's the car park, the size and form of that car park, and the consequent effects of that in the local area, and the loss of the agricultural land. But sort of in the scheme of things, that amount of agricultural land is not a huge amount of agricultural land. So we've given that fairly limited weight. So the recommendation overall is to grant permission subject to the conditions set out in the report, and to the Section 106 agreement, the heads of terms which are also given in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from members to the officer? Can I just ask one to start this off? Having a car park is a condition of a SANG, is it not? And the size and the number of parking spaces has to relate to the size of the SANG?
Yes, so the SANG guidelines do specify, I think it's 1 space per hectare of SANG is the recommended amount. And yes, SANGs have to have car parks. The evidence suggests that's how most people access SANGs.
Right. Councillor Forster. Oh, I'm just going to go around the room then. Right.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that introduction. I've got a couple of questions. The first one, just by way of a preamble, is we've had SANGs at Edenbrook, Bramshot, and locally, although not in Hart, at the Southwood Centre. All three of those suffer severe flooding problems. My assurances when they were designed that the flooding wouldn't be a problem and there were raised areas, etc. Could you explain why this one is going to be right when the last three weren't?
If I can just go back to one of those slides which showed the flood risk. It's this one here. This is the modelling of the flood risk, and this is more accurate than the Environment Agency's flood map for planning, because this is a bespoke model. And what this shows is, while we expect the car park to be safe, clearly there's still residual risk to some of the pathways, and that's just a drawback of the site. So there would be some flood risk to some of the pathways. That's seasonal, and the view we've taken on that is because public open space is regarded as water compatible development in the NPPF. We've regarded that to be acceptable.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the entry to the car park, again, if I look at some of the other SANGs, they have severe problems with cars not going into the car park, parking on the road, and causing rutting, damage to the frontage, blocking of the road. That doesn't seem to have been considered in this. Is there any reason why?
Well, the size of the car park is effectively been set by that recommendation within the SANG guidelines, 1 space per hectare, and that's what it achieves here. The Highway Authority have assessed the capacity of that car park, and they are satisfied that it does provide sufficient capacity. So that's where we've ended up with in terms of the capacity issue and whether there would be any on-road parking. I mean, just to flick to, yeah, I mean, looking at that, there's no real capacity there for the on-road stuff. And I think based on the number of spaces in the car park, the Highway Authority are satisfied that it is sufficiently sized.
Okay, and I've got two remaining questions. The first one is there any dog wash proposed on site, like at Southwood, which has been well received, not just a tap, but a proper dog wash facility? And secondly, what is there to stop overnight stays and travellers in particular?
I don't think there is a dog wash. Looking at that drawing on screen, we've got a number of ponds, but nothing has been designated as a dog wash. And then in terms of security for the car park, there's no specified gateway, but that is something that could be added to one of the conditions if members saw fit.
Okay, we'll make a note of that about height restriction. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Hiley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, James, for the presentation. Could you just show the picture of, it was a photograph of the exit point, if you were looking right, if you were exiting the car park? If you could, yeah, that there. That one there, yeah. Have you actually got a picture which shows if a car was actually sitting at the exit point? And bear in mind, you've probably got, depending on the size of the car, you've either got 4 foot, 3 foot, or 5 foot worth of bonnet. And then you've got the passenger, then you've got the driver behind the steering wheel. So have you got a picture that would show us what the true exit view looks like from that exit point? Because my concern is a little bit about the safety of exiting that road.
Yeah, it's difficult to say, but on this image, you might just be able to make out a faint blue line from the access point. So that is the visibility splay. We have had technical details of that. It has been assessed by the Highway Authority, and that is the reason for the removal of the big oak tree to facilitate those splays.
Yeah, I did read the report. I've been here a few times just to sort of stand in that exit area, and you used the word earlier about on the ground, how it feels from a pragmatic viewpoint rather than a technical perspective. If I was actually sitting in the car there, looking on the right-hand side, you're highly reliant on cars coming around that corner at a very low speed. If a car's speeding over, I guess, 20, 25 mile per hour, and you're not careful, there's a potential there to have quite a serious accident. So I guess I've got two concerns there. One is I accept the fact that probably the highway report was assuming a certain level of speed, but clearly they weren't assuming a higher speed. I know residents have actually complained, and I've seen this myself when I was standing there, of cars actually driving up down there really, really quickly. And you've got to be really alert to make sure you don't have an accident. So for me, it's not about safety at the correct speed limit. It's safety for those idiots who actually drive at excessive speed through it. And I'm a bit concerned that that access point there actually is still dangerous, even with those displays. The second thing is, have you got a landscape drawing which shows, again, if I'm sitting in the car and I look at the landscape plan that's been recommended, if I look at the planting with the trees and the shrubs and everything else, how much that either mitigates the issue or actually blocks the issue, especially in 5 years' time when those plants and trees have actually grown up? Is there going to be a long-term issue?
So that is effectively this drawing here, which does show the proposed landscaping, and the visibility display takes that into account. So that is what highways have looked at. In terms of how highways have drawn that conclusion, they did ask the developers to do a speed survey. So it has been informed by on the ground, up to date evidence, and that's how they've arrived at that view. So yeah, that's how we've taken that view. They are the experts, so we go with that.
The last question relates to inappropriate and illegal use of the car park. And if we look at the area, I know certainly in Wingate Meadow, we've actually had problems with travellers actually pulling out posts and illegal encampment there for actually quite a period of time. Is there any form of mitigation there on the entrance there to stop caravans from getting in or boy racers from getting in? Like, for example, has it got an overhead bar which restricts height? Has it got a pinch point there? Has it got humps there which make it difficult and therefore it would put people off trying to make illegal use of that land?
So at the moment, as alluded to previously, no, it doesn't, but we can secure that by condition.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's the same question that Councillor Forster had, and we've made a note about height restriction barrier if this does go forward. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the benefits mentioned is that the space would be public open space. How is that seen as a benefit, given that at the moment it's already open space, albeit private land and whatever, but it's open space already? So how does that really weigh as a benefit?
So that is, so at the moment, you've got the two public footpaths which run through the land, but they have fences on each side of them, so you can't actually get onto the land itself. With this, all of the land would be open, and you've got the 2.3 to 2.5 kilometre circular walk, which you can see there on the drawing, going round it. So the land is all opened up, whereas at the moment you really are restricted to those paths running through it.
I kind of meant the impression of it is as public open space already, albeit privately owned, but it's open space. The other question was on the walking route. I accept there were changes between the application and the final version under consideration, but one of the later submissions in the agenda supplement today is for a further change to the Sang walking route potentially. This is put forward by residents, I think it is. And the document looks to be very well reasoned with many benefits, and it might even be lower cost for the applicant because it seems to reuse existing assets, bridges and paths. Are we able to require or request that proposal is implemented or considered, or is it irrelevant? I mean, it's on there in the addendum for us to consider, so I'm just wondering what we can do with that information.
So that is a representation that's been made. It's not the proposal before us, so we're required to come to a view on the proposal before us. So yeah, we've got a certain change to the scheme, so it's this. So that was what was secured during the course of the application, and we've taken the view that that is sufficient to come to an overall view on the scheme to recommend approval, and that is what is before us now. We can't consider the changes proposed by the third party tonight. They would have to form part of a proposal, and at the moment they don't.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you. I'm not a regular member of the committee. Can you explain what a swale is, please?
Yeah, so a swale is a drainage feature designed to catch either surface water or flood water in this case. So I just go back to this shot. So there's a swale, the swale on the left-hand side there, the big one, that sort of turns in a right angle toward the top end. That is part of the mitigation for the flood risk, the fluvial risk from the River Hart. Whereas the one in the middle is designed as a surface water drainage scheme to catch rainwater. Of course, the one on the left will function in that way as well. But what it does is it compensates. So you see here on the right-hand side there, it's showing the raised ground. And if you're raising ground in a floodplain, you have to compensate by lowering it somewhere else. So that's what it's doing.
Thank you. So where does the water go when it's collected?
So the water in the swale, when it goes into the swale, you can see there on the left, the swale is the blue line, and then the green line is a culvert beneath the access, which links into the River Hart. So the swale can drain naturally into the river.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. The other question, I mean, I'm like a number of us very concerned about the entrance and the exit. I know some people do speed through the village. My preferred speed is about 25 miles an hour because it is narrow and a bit twisty and you've got trees kind of sticking out, but that's not everybody. So I do have concerns about people turning out of that turning and somebody kind of T-boning them. Is there anything that we can do to make that exit and entrance safer? I know Highways didn't put in any objection, but is there anything we can do going forward to kind of, you know, warn people that there's an entrance or something like that?
I'm not sure in terms of signage, that's probably a matter for the Highway Authority. We do have a condition, I think, securing displays. That's ordinarily, let's just have a look. Yeah, so condition 7 recommended by the Highway Authority effectively requires the developer to maintain those visibility displays. So the visibility displays that the Highway Authority have assessed and considered to be adequate, they would be secured by condition.
Thank you. One more thing. I use the leisure centre. When you come out of the leisure centre, you're waiting and cars are coming in and it's incredibly tight and you always I get quite fearful of somebody scraping the side of my car. Is the entrance and exit sufficiently wide enough that people can sort of come in, you know, without having to wait on the road to get in? That was just another concern as well.
Yeah, so that I think was part of the transport assessment that was submitted. There were some vehicle tracking drawings, and again, that is considered by the Highway Authority.
Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
Well, I live in Crookham Village and I've been down that road very many times. And the visibility is dreadful. And if you're going more than about 10 miles an hour, you can't see what's coming around the corner. Even when you're walking, you have to walk very carefully and very close to the edge of the road. So I would be very aware that traffic will be an issue and there will be accidents because it's just a dangerous place to be. My main reason is, as it's a protected view in the neighbourhood plan, is there any way that the surface of the car park can be blended in more with the scenery, so make it greener as opposed to a car park, a bonded or whatever it's going to be, gravel, will not be green? I know some of the other car parks have either a concrete mesh or a plastic mesh which allow grass to grow through. Is there any way that it could be something like that that looks a bit more natural, bearing in mind it's agricultural land at the moment?
That potentially could be added to the condition that is already on there requiring details of the surfacing. So yes, it could potentially be added on. So obviously we have gone from a fairly urban tarmac surface to a fairly rustic resin gravel surface. But that, yes, that
it's
could
still
be
gravel,
which
yes, is not
and it could
not rural or rustic at all. It's just
And yeah, you could request further details of surfacing treatment by condition if you wanted to. Yeah.
Okay. Any other members want to ask Mr. Wildsmith?
Yeah, first question, as regards to swales, which are obviously then feeding into the river, of swales are right through the car park. Is there any environmental issues if cars parked in the car park had fuel leaks, oil leaks, etc., about getting into the river? Because obviously the River Hart, although it's not actually a full chalk stream, it is linked into the whole Sutton Valley network, so it's sort of quite a unique ecological system.
Yeah, so there would be some form of filtration in the detailed design of that drainage system. I think that was covered actually in one of the paragraphs. Hang on. Yeah, para 43. So that was raised by some of the third parties, and yeah, so the sustainable drainage system proposed would attenuate and filter the flows into the river.
And I presume that would, whatever filtration would be mandated on the part of the management, if that filtration system to be looked after and dealt with one. Yes, part of the same management plan. Thank you. Other question, kind of comment was on behalf, obviously Councillor Ford said about height restriction, and Councillor Heidi, I think, when said about pinch points. Do we want to mention about pinch point as well? Obviously, that restricts the width of vehicles being able to get in a bit. As much as it's a pain, obviously they have it on Southwood, as much as it's a pain, it actually slows the traffic coming out of the car park as well from a safety point of view. Because if it's tight, you can't shoot out a million miles an hour, so likely to make it safer. Then the other question, we've obviously heard a lot about speeding on the roads. I'm presuming we basically have to ignore that, don't we? Because we've got the reports here which show the highway safety report. So whether we know it's true or not, other members' comments about may know the road is fast isn't something we can actually take account of tonight, is it?
I won't answer that in detail, but you should remember that the county will have taken account of there are a lot of entrances and exits all along that road. This isn't building a new one in a place where there's no other traffic movements in and out of properties. Okay, any more questions for the officer? Otherwise, we'll move to public speaking. Yeah. Right, we've got a number of speakers this evening. Are we ready for that? Committee services. First of all, I'd like to invite the Parish Council. Councillor Jackson, you're first to the podium tonight. If you'd like to just sit at that chair. Now, all speakers are given 3 minutes. Okay, we've got this contraption here that tells you when you're coming to an end and when you need to really wrap up when it goes red, and that's controlled by our committee services there, and I'll give you a gentle reminder. Do you have any slides you want us to look at with your presentation? Do you just want to speak to this?
I will speak.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson, and just start when you're ready.
Good evening. I'm Councillor David Jackson, and I speak on behalf of Crookham Village Parish Council. Major concern is preservation and enhancement of the village conservation area and the local gap that helps to retain the historic, linear, rural nature of that settlement. Housing developments in the parish over the last 40 years have dramatically reduced green space, biodiversity and habitats, with a marked reduction in local wildlife. It is our view that SANG requirements would reduce the potential for restorative biodiversity gain. The car park on Cornwall Road would be completely out of character with the existing rural street scene, will require removal of a major oak tree and have adverse effects on the flood risk both up and downstream. Adjacent residents have serious concerns about flooding and antisocial behaviour. The car park at Crookham Wharf had to be closed overnight. Antisocial behaviour. Similar problems at Zebman Community Centre led to police involvement. Problem just moved to a different site. The car park management plan must address this threat. Furthermore, a height barrier would be essential, which would further increase the visual intrusion. Logging or other hard surface paths would be urbanising, whilst the section over the River Hart and its floodplain could affect local hydrology. Furthermore, having the main access into the site over a known floodplain would give access problems. Adequate numbers of bins for disposal of dog waste must be sited intelligently, regular collections, and planned access for the collectors. Security is another major concern for residents bordering the site. The report takes no account of the ebb and flow of walkers over a day. Opening up access to the rear of properties gives visibility into back gardens, which would greatly assist reconnaissance ahead of criminal activity. Vegetation screen would take some time to establish, visually separate the village from its surrounding countryside, and potentially provide cover for miscreants. We invite you to take a sceptical look at the conclusions of the applicant's flooding analysis, to consider the potential for unwelcome law and order issues, the effect on the conservation area, and if you decide to approve, who takes our suggestions for management issues.
30 seconds remaining. Sorry.
Please consider carefully our justification for maximising biodiversity enhancement of the site, which underpins our major recommendation that the SANG element in its current form is not approved.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any questions for if you just wait there for a second, I'm sure our members will have a few questions. Councillor Cockrell.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor, I'm struggling a little bit with this one, so hopefully you can help me out. The application is obviously for a SANG and includes biodiversity net gain around the margins of the SANG. The SANG is there to provide open space for walkers who would otherwise potentially go onto the SPA, which is protected rural area. We have a lot of SPA area in Yateley, where I'm from. A lot of the paths that serve car parks are hogging gravel paths, and the others are gravel and stone naturally, or sand. I'm struggling to understand the parish council's point of view in terms of biodiversity net gain. What is the issue that you have with the biodiversity net gain? Why is that not, in your view, something that you are keen to see?
We are very keen to see biodiversity net gain, but it's our contention that if you introduce the essential elements of the SANG, that net gain will be reduced.
So how then would you, bearing in mind this is at the moment private farmland,
yes, with
a couple of small, rather muddy as it looks like, footpaths running through it, how would you then get biodiversity net gain without the SANG?
If you have no SANG and the field is, as it currently is, protected against dogs running everywhere, then you have an opportunity over the rest of the site to whatever biodiversity net gain you choose without the adverse effects of dogs and what they leave behind them affecting what's going on. There are proposals in times when, for example, skylarks might be nesting, of fencing off to protect potentially where they might be. That is not green space. That starts to become something quite different. We're not trying to run a wild animal zoo here. It's supposed to be open and unaffected green space, and the more you put in the way of paths and so on, the less that is true.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you. Two quick questions. The first one is, you mentioned criminality and a recent incident near the canal. How many incidents have been reported in the last 5 years?
I don't have that information. The car park is still scheduled to close from 8 till 8 overnight, and so I assume there is still a risk. We have experienced, not all the time, but from time to time, of gatherings of youngsters and lots of gas canisters being left behind when they leave, and other unfortunate activities, cars being driven on in an antisocial manner. And so that is a threat, not a continuous one, but one which needs to be mitigated when it occurs.
Okay, can I just check whether those incidents have been reported to police?
Oh, absolutely.
Each and every one of them?
I have no idea whether everyone has, but certainly those that occurred at Severn Copse have been.
Okay, my other question.
Okay, when you remember it. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Councillor Jackson, or shall we move on to the next speaker? Okay, thank you, Councillor Jackson. Now we have, well, as a blast for the past, Face It. Okay, and I've got Max Clark and Tony Garrett-Jones. Who's speaking? Pardon? You do have some slides for you. Hang on a second. I think we've got.
If you just let me know when you want to move slides, I can move slides.
He can move the slides for you. Just
do you want a nod or something?
Or a little expletive will do.
To move it on.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and as for the previous speaker, it's got 3 minutes, and we'll give you a warning of when you're approaching that. And Red, if you try to just finish off and sum up as quickly as you can, then.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Pardon?
Can you?
I'm not moving your slides for you.
Yeah. You can. Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of Face It, which is a community group that represents local residents on matters of development and planning. Sorry. We've submitted detailed responses to the various proposals that have come through for Cross Farm, but as the application has twice been presented as a full application, we've been obliged to respond as objecting, even though the community clearly supports retaining Cross Farm as open space. Cross Farm is loved precisely because it is open, rural and tranquil, wide skies, long views, skylark and a sense of being in nature. It forms the setting of Crookham Village and is central to its character. So when a proposal comes forward to change it, residents naturally want to understand what's happening. Unfortunately, the proposers haven't engaged with the community, and this does not bode well for future public engagement on the operation of the Sang itself. The car park, as we heard, remains the single biggest issue. This location would develop the last remaining opening on that side of Crondall Road. It sits within the conservation area and directly beside two 17th century buildings identified as important in the conservation area statement. And as you've heard, the neighbourhood plan identifies the open rising view across the field as a key view. Car park here is clearly going to cause harm to that setting. And as we've talked about, the site's in a floodplain, raising concerns about year-round access. And the design with hard surfacing, planting blocks and barriers would urbanise this sensitive part of the village. If we had BNG biodiversity net gain alone, then you wouldn't need a car park. So that would be part of our preferred response to this. The design of the Sang itself is very poor. Without any local knowledge, it seems, we've ended up with a boilerplate design. It doesn't reflect the landscape and how people actually use it. Some improvements have been made, like removing the ridiculous dog agility area and retaining the estate railings. Thank you. But the design is insensitive and issues remain. A much more sensitive and appropriate design is possible. And we're concerned that the recommendation in the report now prevents further improvements as the design is being locked in. And this condition, I think, needs to be reconsidered. We have major concerns about Sang management and viability. requires proper professional long-term management for its entire 80-year lifespan. Many essential elements are not yet in place. A management body with relevant experience, funding, clear contractual arrangements, credible stewardship plan, fallbacks such as clawback and step-in rights. So the sheer number of conditions recommended in the report shows that this application is not ready in its current state.
Okay, I think
Sorry about the time.
That's okay. Right.
I've just got one. Can I just do one more slide quickly?
All right.
Sorry.
We'll make it.
So it's the last one. Thank you. FACEIT would welcome the recognition, designation and protection of this important natural area and significant landscape asset. But many essential elements are not yet in place, as I've said, including an appropriate and complete design and assurance of proper professional management for the SANG's entire lifespan. So these gaps mean that the SANG cannot really be considered deliverable or sustainable. And as I said, the number of recommended conditions in the report underlines it's not ready. So for these reasons, and with some reluctance, we have to object to the proposal as put forward.
Thank you. I'm sure we've got some questions from our members here. Councillor Wildsmith.
Yeah, my question, you said about constrained routes in the design.
Yes.
I'm a little bit confused about seeing all the fences on the current footpaths are going to come down, and then you've got to have paths which aren't constrained in the design. So were you able to elaborate on what you meant by that? Sorry.
Yes. It's particularly noticeable around the car park access. I don't know if we can get a slide up, but let me think. If we look at the design as it stands, when you leave the car park, imagine you turn left, and you're forced to go between a fence, a new fence that doesn't seem to do anything, and a new scrape which might be full of water, especially in winter. And therefore you're forced to go between, and this is the point where, according to the SANG requirements, you have to be able to let your dog off its lead. And so that's going to happen straight away. But everybody, including their dog, is going to be going through a narrow gap between a fence and a pond in the lowest part of the site. And then you're led round by that fence, round the edge of the SANG again. So you don't get a sense that you're going out into a nice open space when you emerge from the car park. And there are other areas which will be constrained by either fencing or woodland, but not as severely as that particular area. That's particularly bad in the design.
Okay. Happy with that response. Any other questions for Max? No. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And then we have Mr. Snow. Right. You're speaking on behalf of the application, Bell and Cornwall. Right. As with the other speakers, I can assure you I won't be as lenient with you because you're a professional speaker. I understand. So you've got 3 minutes, and we'll give you some warning.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. My name is Ryan Snow, and I'm the planning consultant acting on behalf of the applicant. I think it's important to begin with the planning context for this application. In 2020, a proposal for a 160-bed care village together with associated SANG on this site was refused by the council and later dismissed at appeal. However, the appeal inspector was very clear that the SANG element of that proposal was acceptable. The inspector specifically concluded that due to the site's location and accessibility, the public open space would be used as SANG would have a high capacity to absorb recreational pressure. That is a material consideration as part of this current application before you this evening. Since then, the site has been purchased by the applicant, who has no intention of pursuing built development on the land. Instead, the objective is to retain the site as publicly accessible open space. The proposal before you delivers exactly that. It provides public open space to be used as SANG that would be secured in perpetuity and would preclude any built development of the land for that time. It would also preserve the majority of the cross-farm local gap in accordance with a key aim of the Crookham Village Neighbourhood Plan. The scheme would also secure improvements to the public footpaths across the site, which, as you can see from the photographs, are greatly needed. It would also secure a financial contribution of over £65,000 towards the improvement of the Basingstoke Canal towpath. Alongside all of this, the application delivers significant ecological enhancements, including new woodland, new hedgerows, orchard planting, and the restoration of various habitats across the land. These are substantial and long-term public benefits. Members will also note that Natural England, the Environment Agency, and the Council's technical expert consultees have carefully reviewed the technical evidence, and they raise no objection to the application. Turning to the concerns raised by the Parish Council and local residents, the proposals have been amended and carefully designed in order to take on board their comments. Footpaths are now set well away from residential boundaries between 18 metres and 31 metres, with proposed native hedgerow and tree planting providing additional screening and separation. These measures can all be secured by condition so that they are undertaken to the satisfaction of this council. In terms of the landscape and heritage impact, the car
30
park,
seconds remaining.
thank you. Whilst the proposed car park will inevitably introduce some change, officers are clear, including the heritage officer, the technical expert, that with a comprehensive landscaping scheme and appropriate finishing materials, which you can control by condition, that impact would not amount to material harm warranting refusal. Finally, members, you'll be aware of the increasing pressure for sound provision across the district as a result of the housing land supply deficit. As identified within the officer's report, this site would provide valuable mitigation capacity, serving a wide area between Fleet, Odium and Hook. For these reasons, I therefore respectfully ask members to support the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you,
you very much. Thank you. Questions for the applicant? I've got Councillor Cockerell, then I've got Councillor Quarterman and Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I think both the previous public speakers were querying the long-term management of the SANG.
Yes.
And suggested that currently there's nothing in place. What is the proposed SANG management that you're suggesting? And could it possibly go to, for example, the parish council to look after? If they wanted it? I mean, but what is the current management plan? Because it needs to be managed for at least 80 years.
Yes. So it's currently proposed that would be secured as part of the legal agreement proposed by officers.
Right. But is the intention that it will be privately managed, or that it would be offered to, well, not this council necessarily because we won't be here, but is it going to be privately owned or publicly owned? Is basically what I'm saying.
That hasn't been decided yet.
Right. And the applicant isn't fussed one way or the other, is what I'm getting at.
Yes, I think if the parish council or any public body came forward and wanted to manage it over a private entity, then the applicant would be open to that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Quarterman.
Yeah, I've got two questions. First one is, what is the purpose of the post and rail fence that runs up from the car park and then sort of doubles back towards into the SANG?
I'm not sure entirely the section of the site you're referring to. Is it where
so if you look on the plan, there's marked on the plan a post and rail fence which runs up the side of the car park along the side of the path and then doubles back into the SANG, and it's that which the previous speaker was referring to when he talked about the constrained access, because you're going to have to walk up beside this fence, and I just don't understand why it's there. I don't see the purpose of it. Yeah, it's on the thing behind you.
Yeah, I think it's. I believe it's to control the use of the wetland mosaic that's proposed there. But if members are concerned, I mean, ultimately the final details can be secured by condition. if that's something you're particularly concerned with.
Okay, I just thought you might know why it was there. I mean, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I think he's answered your question
Yeah.
to protect the Westland.
That's fine. And my second question then is a couple of the speakers and indeed several of the objectors that we've heard in the course of the application have suggested that the local community are in principle in agreement with the concept of a SANG, but have got objections to some of the details and feel that had they had more chance to work those through with the applicant, then we might have come up with a more mutually acceptable scheme. Is it therefore the case that you've engaged with them in that way, or not? How much engagement has happened with the local community? Is the question.
Sorry, please.
I don't think the applicant would mind me saying that they're from the area, that they spoke to local residents. I can say that I personally, as the planning consultant, didn't carry out, engagement with the parish council, but they did speak to local residents. I have worked on this project for 3 years. We've had extensive engagement with Natural England, with the Environment Agency, and with this council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Forster.
Thank you. With that 3 years experience, I hope you're well familiar with the issue that's been raised by a number of members around speeding and the concerns about that. Yet there's nothing in there, and I understand that the Highways Authority has a strict set of guidelines that they can raise, but it doesn't take into account that local knowledge. So it does sound as though potentially some measures, whether that's signposting or a speed table, might be appropriate. In principle, would you be happy to support that if that was a condition?
If it was considered appropriate by this council and supported by the Highway Authority, then we would be open to consider that. Absolutely.
And Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just to my line of sight. In terms of the current SANG walking route, the circular route that's in there, and we've heard that there was an alternative proposal put late in the day, would the applicant welcome the ability to vary it to adopt some or all of the features that have been suggested? Because it's, we're setting now at the moment, this is what's going to be implemented. Would you welcome the ability to vary from that if it were to improve, possibly even reduce the cost of it to the applicant in some way to meet the suggestions of the organisations responding?
Firstly, I haven't had sight of that document. I think officers have addressed this question already, that the proposal before you is the scheme proposed. This hasn't just been thought of overnight. This is through extensive consultation with Natural England. They have a regime, a set of guidelines that you have to follow. And that's why the paths are located exactly where they are. And if that isn't followed, then they won't support the SANG coming forward. It won't be delivered. So it's not a straightforward question to answer. As I've said before, some of the details here, there will be additional details coming forward at condition stage. If officers feel it's appropriate that the path can be changed to some extent, then we'd be open to that. But I think they have already answered that question in that the scheme before you is what you need to determine.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have to consider the scheme in front of us, but I think we've got the flavour there that as long as it doesn't detract from them being able to be an approved SANG, they will consider changes. And as long as it doesn't increase the costs significantly, because we don't expect the applicants to just suck it up, as it were, but they would look at these to see if they can improve it, because if the reasons your applicant is doing it is for public access, that he should be looking to please the local community as much as the statutory consultees. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. But the point is that the way it's been described, is to be completely compatible with SANG requirements. It does measure the routes, distances, directions, circularity. That's all set out in detail, but also the reason why it's an improvement over the current one before us. And it's very possible, I think, from the way it's described, that it would be a lower cost to implement. So rather than, as a committee, we say, oh, well, I suppose we have to go with what's there. If there is an alternative that actually is beneficial all round, then if there's a way of us allowing that to be considered, then I don't think we should block that off.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just getting some advice because we have to consider what's in front of us. We can't condition change like that. That wouldn't be appropriate or legal. We'd have to go for a deferral and re-look at the plan. We can go for an informative. No, can't we? To encourage the applicant to consider.
That would just be an informal encouragement as to address our concerns, but it would have no teeth.
Right, any more questions for the applicant? No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Snow. Well, it feels like we've been in debate for about an hour, but we haven't. So as this is in, who's substituting? Is it Councillor Collins? Would you like to open this up for our debate, please?
Sorry. Yes, we've obviously heard from everyone's point of view, and I believe we need to carefully consider what is before us. Obviously, there have been a number of objections from residents, and not necessarily objections from the parish council, but observations from the parish council, and many questions from around the table. So, yes, I'd like to put it forward, please.
Okay, right. Who would like to start the debate? Councillor Wildsmith.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of points tonight, and obviously we've got to remember what we have to decide is what is in front of us here, and not what could be or what ifs, because that isn't our job to do. Or we could be sat here on any application trying to improve every single application, because ultimately probably every application could be improved in one way or another. We've always heard about road safety concerns, but again, despite all of us probably having driven that road, know you get people who are very, very silly and go very fast around the corners there. We haven't got any data or any backup from highways to say there is an issue with highways function of it. So we have to judge it on what has been provided here in front of us. It's a green space, and it's going to keep the green space for at least the next 80 years. If it was just left as an agricultural field, it's a small agricultural field, and with the way housing numbers are going, it could very well end up with a housing application onto it instead, which would definitely not be a biodiversity net gain. We heard from the parish council that they want biodiversity net gain, but part of it sounded like they want it without the public access to it. I think ultimately any green space we can get, which has got public access, got public amenity and space for people to get out and about in, is definitely a benefit to the area. There are obviously some concerns as regards visibility into the back of people's gardens, etc. But then I'd argue that is no different to if you go to Edenbrook, where all the paths there run right along the house, which right onto the back of the house, and people can see into them. So we've got other examples like that. And again, the antisocial behaviour concerns. We can't look at it a point of view of we don't want it here, it's going to be somewhere else. Obviously, instances these things do happen, that is then down for the police, community safety teams to then deal with and manage as and when they happen. But we shouldn't be tarring all people with that brush, but it is going to happen there. And if it does, then it needs to be dealt with by the appropriate authority. So I think on balance, what we have here will be an improvement to the site. And obviously we know wetlands are a big biodiversity net gain compared to just a green open field.
Okay, Councillor Cockrell.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just before I to launch into more of a debate, so I do have one question which popped into my mind for the officers. Normally, obviously, we do this beforehand, but referencing the conversation about SANG management, I'm wondering whether at this stage we've spoken to our countryside team about whether, if this was to come forward as an option for them to look after, whether they would want to take it on.
I think my understanding at the moment is what we've seen so far indicates it would be privately run, but we have, so point 1 of the heads of terms for the section 106 would secure step-in rights for the council.
Okay.
So whether at any point, if the developer were to change their minds, or indeed if a private entity was to take it on and then surrender it, the council would be able to step in.
Okay. The reason I sort of raise that, Chairman, is because we've had instances in the very recent past where our countryside team have wanted to take over SANG. It's been proposed to be publicly owned, but they haven't been able to because the SANG hasn't been up to standards that they wish it to be. And there are issues with each of those SANGs. But I think what I'm hearing in terms of the debate, the discussion, the questions has been that in principle, we're probably in favour of having a SANG here with biodiversity net gain and open space protecting the local gap, but we're not quite convinced that the design is right. And there are some issues around whether the car park works and whether it's going to impact upon heritage, etc. And I've been trying to grasp, Mr. Chairman, whether or not the issues that have been raised are significant enough that we could throw out the whole thing. I mean, if we do that, then we'll be effectively asking the applicant to come back with a revised plan. It sounds like they've been working on this for several years, or 3 years at least from the sound of it. And I suspect their view is this is the best that they're going to be able to get, what with the various constraints on the site. And until we get a new plan with potentially a new circular path, which has to be of a specific size, I think it's something like 2.5 kilometres from memory, then we can't consider it in the first place. So bearing in mind where we are, I've been thinking about this, and I think the reason we've got the conditions is to make sure that we can tidy up issues that might cause a problem. So if we have an issue with the surfacing of the car park, okay, we can condition a particular surfacing for the car park, which solves our problem with surfacing of the car park. That doesn't need an entirely new application to do that. It just needs a conversation between ourselves and the applicant. And that's a very common way of solving these sorts of relatively minor issues when it comes to planning application. Almost all planning applications have a whole list of conditions, as you will know, Chairman. So I think on balance, the officers have probably got this about right. It is going to be a slightly constrained site. You can't do a lot with it because it's supposed to be open space. You can't start rearranging lots of bits. You can't sort of say, well, we'll move the car park around and have a road going into the car park to make the access better, because that destroys the point of open space. So I would probably, I'm not an expert in SANGs, but I would probably agree with a view that says somebody else designing this might come up with a better solution. But that's not up to us to decide. Is this design acceptable? It may not be the best design, but it's a design that we've got in front of us. And I think on this occasion, bearing in mind it has changed over its lifetime, to take account of concerns, the officers have probably got this one right. So I think I would be supporting the A and B recommendation, but I would want the officers, our officers, to talk to our countryside team to make sure that if it was to go in that direction, the countryside team were happy, because I wouldn't want us to get into a situation where, for whatever reason, the applicant or there was an issue with management because we weren't happy with it, and a private manager had said, well, actually, we've decided to do something different.
Okay, I think that was a request to make sure the step-in condition was absolute.
It's just to make sure that our countryside team are happy with it before we eventually.
You're talking experience of Edenbrook.
Not just that one.
Yeah, so just to confirm, the countryside team have assessed this, and the natural environment manager is happy with it.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak in the debate? Councillor Quarterman.
Right, to be brief, I have one of these sangs at the back of my garden, and it's hugely preferable to having a large housing estate at the bottom of your garden. So in some respects, you kind of say, well, the sang has got many advantages to it. It preserves the open green space. It provides an amenity for the community, and given the choice between this and built development, I think we'd all rather see this. I have been a little confused by the conversation about conditions that happened during the course of this debate, because I don't think we're in the business of sitting here dreaming up long lists of additional conditions. I don't think that's practical. I don't think it's the job of this committee anyway, and I don't think that's what we should be doing. We should be trusting our officers to get the conditions, the package of conditions that are right for this particular site. And I think we have to also remember the final point, which we all have to be very aware of these days, which is that if we say no to this, there's a very good chance it will come back on appeal and we'll have to accept it. I can't see that there are strong planning arguments for refusing it. The balance of benefit, it probably does outweigh the balance of harm. So it's unfortunate that it's perhaps been designed as well as it should have been. It's unfortunate that perhaps the consultation hasn't been as good as it should have been. And I think we recognise all of that. On balance, I think we probably should be approving this tonight.
Okay, thank you for that. Just before you speak, Councillor Forster, I'm just going to say I agree with what you said, but I don't agree about conditions. I think it is up to us if we were going to add something, and whatever happens to come to the resolution, I want the conditions about the height restriction and the surface treatment of the car park to be conditioned. Yeah, because I think those are general concerns raised by speakers and around this table. Okay, Councillor Forster, you wanted to participate.
Thank you, Chair. And I do agree with your comment that the conditions are important. So I agree with what you've just said. And on that point, I think there are two that are specific. One you mentioned, which is the height restriction. The other one, though, I think relates to the road outside because of the concerns raised with local knowledge. I would suggest a speed table at very near the entrance to slow passing traffic, likely to be approved by highways, would mitigate risk that has been identified in the debate, coupled with the knowledge of what has happened at places like Bramshot with on-street parking, so a traffic order preventing parking on the street there, which would again increase risk. So I think that should be in the conditions. That would be my recommendation.
Going to take advice on whether we can do that.
Whilst I respect Councillor Forster knows a lot about highways, the fact that they might or would be likely to approve that isn't enough for us to secure to impose a condition, because until we know that the Highway Authority would support that, we can't require it. So I think that would take us into the realms of a deferral. If we feel that the highway safety issue is so important that would be likely to refuse it on that basis, then I would say the route to go is deferral and negotiation with the Highway Authority to be sure that the requirement for a table or whatever other traffic calming measure would be appropriate is acceptable, and there is a scheme which the Highway Authority would be highly likely to approve.
Thank you for that. On that basis, then I would move it is deferred pending that.
No.
Councillor.
Question on that one. If we were hypothetically all minded to approve it, if what Councillor Ford said about the speed table could go in, but we're happy with everything else on it, aren't you condition it subject to highway approval, so that if highway said no, we don't think it's necessary, we don't want it, the approval just continues without that bit in? Rather, I'm just trying to think of ways, otherwise we know what happened. We go through this whole thing again with deferrals, don't we, rather than trying to see if we can get everything tied up in one go.
I think you're into realms of best endeavours there, which have sort of legal connotations, but it might not be possible. So I don't know whether our lawyer present wishes to comment on the enforceability and reasonableness of that approach.
You've got the highway. You've got the highway comments, and I'm not sure that such a condition can be enforceable. There are tests that that any condition has to satisfy. So if the Highway Authority has considered it and given their advice, it's not for this. It's not for the committee to go back and impose a condition subject to highway approval. The permission is or will be granted subject to conditions that's been agreed at this committee.
Okay, so I think the view there is it can't be by condition. You wanted to speak, Councillor Collins.
Anybody who actually has driven down Crondall Road will be aware that there is already some traffic calming along that road. Therefore, I think it's probably unlikely that highways will put any more in. They would have already assessed the safest places to put traffic calming in, and it obviously was not on that bend. So there's probably a build out about 50 yards further to the south of that, and then another on the other side of the road a bit further along. I think it's probably unlikely that they will put anything else in.
Okay.
Right.
And can I just say you did have a proposal for a deferral. So you have to, it's not been
We can
seconded.
take a vote on a deferral. Anybody second a deferral? Councillor Crampton. Right. Understand the motion in front of you, ladies and gentlemen. There's a motion for a deferral for allowing a negotiation with Hampshire County Council on traffic calming measures. All those in favour? 3. All those against? 5, 6. Okay, so that's defeated. Okay. Anybody else want to speak, or do you want to wrap up the debate, Councillor Collins, and then we can move to the vote? Oh, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I know it's only an informative and it's not enforceable in Ascot Teeth, but I still think it would be useful to have something in there to allow an improvement to that walking path, as long as Natural England were happy with it, or is it Natural England, as a valid saying, because it may improve it and be lower cost to implement. So I don't think we should just dismiss that out of hand. Right. I know we can't enforce it as a condition, but I think it should be in there as informative to allow that to be considered.
I'm just going to check with the officers that they're happy. Put an informative on the application. So it's not enforceable?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with that. I think if that were to be done, they would have to come back with perhaps a non-material amendment to the application to get that approved. But yeah, we can put something which says the applicant is urged to take into consideration an alternative proposal, which we'll have to try and define in some way, it's documented some way. an alternative proposal as described in X, and to offer that as an alternative proposal.
Yeah,
they don't have
I'm only
to do
proposing
that.
it because it is specified in detail. It's not just there could be a better route. It's specified in quite a lot of detail already and in a compliant way with SANG requirements. So that's the only reason I'd actually want that put in there.
You have to take 2 votes or just do it as the one.
You can just do it as the one. There's one recommendation.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Butler.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just ask a couple of things? And again, not being a regular member of the committee, I'm not quite sure about this. So in terms of the entrance and the gateway, we talked a lot about height restrictions, but we're going to ask for a gate and it's going to be locked overnight. Is that what we're thinking about going forward?
So I've got some potential wording for a condition regarding a height barrier. So it would read, the SANG hereby permitted shall not be brought into use until a scheme for a height barrier has been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The approved height barrier shall be installed prior to the first use of the SANG.
I think we need a gate as well, don't we? We want it lockable.
Oh, can you do gates on SANGs?
Have access. Do you want to include a gate as well?
Well, I personally, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but
Gated fence.
I don't know. Who unlocks and unlocks all the other ones that we have? I don't know.
There would be no requirement for them to keep the gate closed, so it would just be a management device which they could use. It would have to be set back, the depth of a vehicle from the back edge of the highway. Whether it's reasonable to require a gate when it could just be left open is debatable, I think. What will it actually prevent or control? Or are you saying that you require the car park to be closed at certain times?
Yeah, I mean the car park by the canal, I think is that locked and closed every night. And I do think it will be a bit of a magnet for people who want to cause trouble, and it is very close to.
Yeah. I think perhaps the only thing with the gate is we might struggle to enforce opening and closing times.
No. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the other thing is about the long-term management plan. I mean, what point do we kind of drill down into that and really get it tight and effective?
So the SANG management plan would be agreed as part of the Section 106 legal agreement process. So permission would not be issued until that is completed to the satisfaction of the council.
There's one other amendment to condition number 15, which I think Mr. Kidger will refer to.
So that would be regarding the surface finish. So that would say, prior to the construction of the car park, details and samples of an appropriate car park surface finish shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The agreed surface finish shall be installed and retained thereafter, etc.
So that deals with the resin bound thing. It would need to be approved, whatever it is.
Okay, right. Anything else you want to say and wrap up, Councillor Collins?
I think we've probably covered pretty much everything. I'm presuming the dog waste bins are just a statutory thing that we have to put onto SANGs and get emptied regularly, but I don't really know how that works. But
it is in the management plan in the design.
Sure it would be.
Is it not?
That would be specified in the management plan.
Yeah, you can't have dogs walking everywhere and nowhere to put them in. Yes, otherwise I think we're probably ready to vote, are we now?
Okay.
Yep.
Well, people are aware of this is a recommendation A, B format recommendation, so that if we don't get to an agreement on the S106 to cover all the things we've asked.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I've just looked up the Bramshot Farm Country Park. I mean, that has opening time 6 till 9. So I was under
That's
the
because we
impression.
do it.
Yeah, right, okay. I
That's
thought
our
it had a lot
choice.
on it, yeah, okay,
Yeah, but Edenbrook doesn't.
right, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we've got recommendation A and B. We're going to take these together. And the recommendation is to grant. So I will move that from the chair. I'd look for a seconder, Councillor Corderman. Okay, so all those in favour of grant, please show.
Chair, with the amended conditions.
With the amended conditions,
We've just spelled out.
you've just spelt out the amended conditions. People understand what the amended and the informative. Surface treatment, height restrictions, informative on, what was it? I don't know.
The rerouting.
Rerouting of the paths from the existing, the new assessment from FACEIT. Yep. Okay. Everybody understand what we're voting on? I will again move that from the chair, grant, seconded by Councillor Quarterman. Okay, all those in favour? 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 3. Okay, that application is granted. Okay, so if you would like to announce that.
So that confirms that subject to the Section 106 agreement being completed, planning permission will be granted. If the 106 is not completed, then it will be refused. That's the result of the resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our business this evening, and I will see you all in June. Good night.